So this is the tutorial if you want to use Procreate for doing your materials. Previous tutorial posted is if you want to use blenders, painting to do your materials. So this one's specifically if you want to do Procreate. So just disclaimer, what I will be showing right now is not the usual workflow for doing UVs or materials in Blender, but that's because usually 3D folk specialize in the like material part of Blender, not using like illustration and stuff. And UV, we're gonna kind of like skip over how we should do it just because it takes a while to learn it. But we'll do like a cheat way just so that we have it, so that we can start with the painting. So first things first is I'm going to apply my mirror modifier. And then I want to actually join all of my objects. So what we're going to be doing right now, the key thing before we can export it and put it in Procreate is we need to make a UV map. And a UV map is a 2D plane for our 3D object. So it's basically, if our pumpkin was a plushie right now, it had to exist at some point as like a 2D thing. So you have like seams on your plushie. So if I tore this frog apart at the seams, I could flatten it and have like a flat material reference of this frog. So we're basically going to make a 2D version of this pumpkin, and that's like how the materials are applied to it, is on this like 2D thing, or it's like recorded in 2D, but it translates to the 3D. Key difference between if I were just going to be texture painting this in a Blender is I want to make these all one object. If I did my UV map separately and exported this and imported it into Blender, or Procreate, it's going to like have parts of the eyeball like go onto the foot because it shares like that like 2D map among all of the objects. We want to just combine them all right away before we do that. So what I'm going to do is click on my pumpkin, hold down Shift, click on the foot, click on the other foot, and click on the pedestal. So I held down Shift and I just grabbed anything I wanted to export and bring into Procreate. So now what I'm going to do is combine them. So I'm going to hit Control J for join, and now it should just have one object for that pumpkin. So now if I go to UV editing, so new workspace, we've been in layout this entire time. If we open up UV editing, this is where on the right you'll have your 3D object, on the left is where we will have our like 2D sewing pattern of our pumpkin. Again, usually you're gonna like specify where the cuts would happen, where you lay it out, but we're just gonna use Blender's like built-in do its best UV unwrap. So you should have your pumpkin opened up in edit mode. It needs to be in edit mode for this to work. So you're gonna hit A. It should select all of your pumpkin. And then we're gonna hit U and then Smart UV Project. So U, Smart UV Project. With this open, I'm gonna just put in like 0.01 as my island margin. And then hit OK. And then it should make a 2D version of our pumpkin over here. Again, usually for this, you're gonna like specify exactly where the cuts will happen. Also, usually you're gonna allocate more of this 2D space to the more detailed portions of this. So for example, my pedestal is taking up like a big space of this, and usually like I don't really care about the detail of the pedestal, so if I was being more exact about this, I'd probably have that be smaller in proportion, whereas have the actual pumpkin parts be larger. But we're just gonna leave it as is for this. But once we have this all unwrapped, now we're ready to export this. So you're just gonna do File, Export, wavefront.obj. So File, Export, wavefront.obj. And then we're just gonna make sure there are a couple settings done before we export it. We want the selection only. So if you, like, for example, had your like Boolean objects still in there, or like the starter cube in there, we want to make sure they're not brought into Procreate with us, so we're just going to do selection only. Under geometry, usually when you're exporting something, you don't want to apply the modifiers. I usually don't want my subdivision surface applied. But if you want the smooth texture to show up in Procreate, you are going to hit apply modifiers. And then you're just going to hit export, and it's going to make both this .mtl and then this .obj. Save this .obj that it creates somewhere that you can access with your iPad. So I don't know enough to like, I saved mine, I like sent it to myself on Discord. And then once you just like click on that .obj on the iPad, it should just, after you download it, prompt you to open up with Procreate. So once you have it in here, I have mine showing its body. So mine is the version before I realized that they shared a UV map. So mine's gonna be a little glitchy, but now you should have it just, oh, I should, sorry, we're not doing selections in Photo Touch-Up. Here's a pumpkin. We can rotate around it to zoom around. And then within the layers section, oh my god, you should have like, yours will probably not have each of these objects because again, this was mine before I joined it and realized that. But the key thing is, oh my god, sorry, this is not intuitive. In this little drop down, you should have this base layer. If I just go in and start painting, I can use my brushes, color, paint on color in there. But if I hit this little cube next to base layer, it'll open that up and you can work with more than just the color. So this is for just color, what it's gonna look like, but you can also work with roughness and metalness, and those are just like working in grayscale, but you can basically say like how metallic your pumpkin is, or how reflective, kind of like reflective of light. It's either like, is light spread out across it, or like very defined highlights with roughness. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's like white on metallic is like fully metallic, and black on roughness is fully smooth, but it might be opposite. But if you want to play around with those as well, you can. But then once you're done, you can just go into your like 3D setting and export that friend again as that OBJ if you want to bring it back into Blender. So I'm very excited to see how they turn out on that. It's like perfectly lined up update of Procreate with our project. So thank you, Procreate.